Paratmanamekam Jagadbijamadyam Niriham Nirakaram Onkaravedyam Yato Jayate Palyate Yena Vishvam Tamisham Bhaje Liyate Yatra Vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear devotees, in the last session, if you all remember, we had looked into certain lessons that we can learn from the Upanishads. If you remember, just to recapitulate some important points, that we had discussed the biggest reality of the so-called life and the human plane. And that reality is the issue of death. And we touched upon that wonderful episode, the discussion between the Guru, who is Yamaraj, and the disciple, who is a small boy, Nachiketa. And the question was about this mysterious phenomenon called death. Do we really die? What is this big experience which every living creature has to go through? And when we probe into it, that is the most important thing. Death can turn out to be the greatest eye-opener and the greatest teacher. That's why Yamaraj, who is the Lord of Death, is also the Guru there. Because death is such a phenomenon which should force every thoughtful human being to ask certain moot existential questions about one's own self. And when we begin to inquire into this phenomenon, a new realm opens up. It is bound to open. When you begin to investigate into this phenomenon of death, you will see a realm which was till now hidden and unknown to us. It begins to open up. And then finally it culminates and it ends up in a great experience, a great discovery, the discovery of one's own true nature. It is a journey from ignorance to knowledge. It's a journey from our state in which we are finding ourselves to be limited. We are finding ourselves to be finite. So it's a journey from finitude to infinitude. And that journey, we again discussed in the last class, is beautifully depicted in the story of that lower bird moving towards the higher bird, which comes in the Mundaka Upanishad. So we saw that story also, how this lower bird is slowly and gradually, it's evolving, it's moving towards the higher bird, which represents infinitude. And the lower bird is what you and I are. A limited, so-called limited entity in search of one's own true nature. So these are the two great lessons which we learned in the last class. Now in today's session, this very idea about the search for the ultimate reality. I repeat this term, it's a search for the ultimate reality. The search for the ultimate reality, again, it is presented in so many ways in the Upanishads. You take any of these Upanishads, you will find it's all dealing with this search for the ultimate reality. Today I will present to you an episode from one of the Upanishads which presents this very great search in a very unique manner. If we look into this external world, what do we find here? This nature, Prakriti, it's a wonderful experience, an experience which we have through our sense organs, is it not? We are experiencing this external world through our sensory system. We are seeing something. Now, many questions will crop up about what we are experiencing. I'm using the term nature in a very contextual sense. Here, nature, we can categorize the nature into two parts. The external nature which we are seeing through our sensory system, and internal nature or the human nature. Once again, I repeat, this is very important. Here I am using the term nature or Prakriti in a very specific context. This Prakriti or nature can be categorized into two, external and the so-called human. External nature is that which we see through our sense organs. Now, this external nature which we are seeing, for every thoughtful person, you will find that it is most confounding and perplexing. In spite of all our boasted advancement in the knowledge of the physical realm, even now, the man, the so-called modern, the postmodern human being is still bewildered when it thinks about what it is perceiving through the sense organs. Here everything is changing. This point we have discussed in some of our earlier classes. This is a realm in which there is no fixity of anything. Everything is continuously changing. Everything is transient. Everything is impermanent. Everything is changing its form. Something which is pleasant now, it is only a matter of time before that pleasant form takes up a form which is unpleasant. You can see this. Prakriti, which looks very pleasant and pleasing now, maybe within a few moments or a few hours, this very Prakriti takes a fierce form. Nature. A gentle breeze, which is so pleasant now, we don't know at what time it turns into a terrible cyclone. Nature, Prakriti, absence of fixity. It's a continuous change which is taking place. A mild drizzle turns into a terrible thunderstorm or a cyclone or a cloudburst, causing fatal floods and devastations. It starts with a mild drizzle, and that mild drizzle, which looks to be so pleasant, how it takes a fierce form, we don't know. It takes the form of a mighty flood. We know how Prakriti changes. Just 2 days back, what happened in Myanmar, Burma? Did those residents, our own brothers and sisters, half an hour before that incident, did they know that this is going to happen? 1 hour before the earthquake, did they know that this is going to happen 1 hour later? Everything was looking so pleasant in Bangkok or Thailand. But when this pleasant form turns into a fierce and an ugly form, no one can predict. A small tremor and the entire city is down. Human beings, they create civilizations and cities. They build bridges, skyscrapers, they build roads, they build machines, and Mother Earth brings it down in a matter of 2 minutes, flat. Thousands perish. The fact of Prakriti, nature. How something which is pleasant, how much time does it take for the pleasant form to turn into something fierce and ugly? No one can predict. Absence of fixity. This is the plain fact as far as this external nature is concerned. Now, what about the human nature? It is the same here as well. Human beings, the most complex creature. This very moment, this human being is very pleasant. How much time does it take for the human being's mood to change from pleasant to unpleasant? We find human beings, how fickle we are. This very moment, the mood is of one kind. A human being who looks very pleasant at this moment, in a matter of half an hour, you will see that human being is now in a totally different mood, which is very unpleasant, irritating also. It is Prakriti. Where is the human being? That is the question now here. Here everything is like that, Prakriti, whether it is external nature or the internal, so-called the human nature, it's all Prakriti, it's all continuously in a state of flux. Absence of fixity. Things appear to be here very clear. No, it's not clear. Clarity is deceptive. You can find out certain reasons on the surface. Yes, we may talk about earthquake and we have some physical reasons for it. You may try to find out answers, physical answers, that this is the reason why the earth tremors and all those things. But beyond the physical, there is something non-physical of which we have no idea now. Beyond the physical phenomenon, there is something non-physical about which even the modern science absolutely doesn't have any clue. You can find out reasons, causality. This is the cause of this event. But even behind that cause, there is a great cause which is invisible to the human eyes, which is invisible, non-perceptible to the modern science as well. That is where comes this great subject of Upanishads. If this is the case with the external nature, it is also the same with the so-called the human nature. Beyond this physical structure, there is something non-physical. And in the absence of the knowledge about that non-physical dimension, we are in great trouble. Human being cannot be satisfied unless it gains the knowledge of that great cause. I refer to that dimension as the great cause, which is the cause of all causes and which in itself is uncaused. Again, I repeat. We are referring to that dimension which is the cause of so-called all other causes which we see on the physical plane. That is why we have to use the term great cause, which in itself is uncaused, which is at the root of everything that we are seeing here, without which, actually speaking, we cannot account for anything. Human being is bewildered. Just see the play of this nature. Mother Nature shakes a little bit and the whole city is down, raised to rubles. Thousands perish within a few moments. Do we know now everything looks to be pleasant here? Do we know what is in store for us in the next half an hour? Can we be sure? Anyone? Anywhere? I think in Mexico there's a great flood. I was seeing in the news. Just before the flood, that very area might have looked so pleasant and so peaceful. Now it's all devastating flood. We may seek answers, physical answers, but beyond the physical answers, there is something non-physical. Now that is the great investigation here. As I said, if this is what happens in the external nature, the same thing is happening with the human system as well. What is behind this physical structure, this physical body-mind complex? That is a big question now. Now see, I am talking to all of you. I may be thinking that it is I who am talking. Or somebody is singing a song, a wonderful song, a highly talented singer. That person may be thinking that, what great quality I have got. I can modulate my voice the way I want it. I can sing to any tune. I can take my voice to any range. All these amazing capabilities. Human being thinks that it all belongs to us. But is it true that these capabilities that we have, to whom does these capabilities belong? That's a big question. The question is, can I even raise my single finger by myself? Can I utter even a single word myself? Upanishad says that there is one entity which is behind this body-mind complex. There is one entity which is behind this so-called gross body-mind complex, in whose presence the body, the sense organs, the mind, the intellect, the pranas, everything is functioning. Again, I repeat, we are investigating into Prakriti, nature. Behind this body-mind complex, this gross structure called the gross body, behind this gross body there is the subtle body. We see the gross body moving, we have no clue what is behind this gross body. Behind the gross body, the subtle body. Is the gross body moving by its own? It cannot. Are our thoughts going on by its own self? It cannot. There is something even behind the thoughts. One entity, which is the cause of all causes, the great cause, in the presence of which alone this body-mind complex can function. Without which it cannot function. Our search is for that. So as I said, if this is the case with this human system, behind this human system there is one entity in the presence of which everything goes on. Similarly, behind this external phenomenon called nature, Prakriti, there is something which is making all this drama go on. And without the knowledge of that, our pursuit of knowledge is always going to remain incomplete. Without the knowledge of that, our pursuit of knowledge is bound to remain incomplete. We cannot be satisfied. That's why, see, as human beings, as living creatures, none of us is satisfied. None of us can be satisfied. Please write it down. It is impossible. As long as our pursuit of knowledge doesn't reach its culmination, and that culminating knowledge is the knowledge of the infinite, the knowledge of that great cause which is behind all the causes, as long as we don't reach there, no human being can remain at rest. It's not possible. Everybody is restless. You cannot keep quiet. So we don't know the direction in which we have to strive. That is the problem. Upanishads and the Guru, they show us the way, which is the direction in which we have to strive. As long as we don't understand what is behind this body-mind complex, we know nothing. This is another point. We may be having so many degrees. We may be thinking we are very knowledgeable people. But Upanishad says that we are all utterly ignorant as long as we have no knowledge about what is existing behind this phenomenon called Prakriti or nature. Now, this is depicted in a beautiful story in that Upanishads. As I said, I gave this example. Somebody may be a great singer. Is it not? The person stands on the stage and performs, presents a wonderful performance, and people applaud. Audience are simply going gaga and crazy, and they're applauding the performance of this great singer. Wonderful. And the person is elated. The person thinks, see how nicely I have sung. Look at my qualities. Look at my capabilities. Immediately we arrogate everything to our own self, not knowing that that person could not have uttered a single word or uttered a single sound without the presence of a great entity behind that body and the mind. That person doesn't know about that. And the moment we arrogate to ourselves the credit of your performance, we are in great trouble. Again, I repeat, the moment we arrogate to ourselves the credit of your brilliant performance. Now, this is not only the case of singing, anything. You may be a good student, you may be good in a certain field, and you take the credit to yourself. The question is, from where did this capability come into your system? Does this capability belong to our own self, or is the source of all the capabilities, abilities, somewhere else? This is the big question. That is the search. The search for that great cause without which we cannot even breathe a single breath. It's not possible. What to talk about singing and talking and giving lectures? We cannot even take a single breath without the presence of that great entity. Now the question is, what is that great entity? So this is presented in a beautiful story, and this story comes in Kena Upanishad to make us understand that beyond and behind this phenomenon called Prakriti and nature, there is something in the presence of which this whole drama is going on. It is that entity which we again refer to using different terms. You can call that entity as God, Ishvara, Atman, Brahman. It doesn't matter what term you use to. But there is one entity in the presence of which this whole drama of life and death and all kinds of experiences which we have, it's all happening in the presence of that reality, which is a matter of experience. But are we really aware about this entity in our day-to-day dealings? No. We act egoistically. That is the big cause of all the sufferings which we have in life. I think I am the doer. Can I do something? Who is the doer? Who is the real agent of action? Can human beings act, really speaking? What is the source of all this power? Power, I'm talking about power, Shakti. Is it our Shakti? Whose Shakti it is? So this is what actually is depicted in that wonderful story. The story is such that once a great war takes place between two groups of people, gods and demons. As we find the stories in our Puranas, there are gods and there are demons, and there is a great war taking place between gods and demons. And after a fierce battle, finally, the demons are defeated and the gods win. And as it happens in this world, whenever we win or whenever we become successful, whenever we taste a little bit of success in life, immediately the natural response to that kind of an experience is what? Elation. The gods, the group of all those people who are referred to as gods, they became elated. Elated, they became proud. They became arrogant. They thought, see, this is our victory. See, we defeated the demons. The demons were defeated by us. It is we who became victorious. This glory belongs to us. And they were enjoying, and they were just like, if you just, to put it in the modern language, they were partying. They were celebrating. They were celebrating their victory, saying that this is our victory. This is our glory. We have defeated the we. That's the main point here. We, I. It is I who have accomplished this. That is the idea. Who is this I? See, the Upanishad presents us this beautiful phenomenon of who is this I? Can this I really do anything? So, the story goes in this way. The gods become self-conceited, vainglorious, presumptuous, arrogant. And the moment this happens, Ishvara, I'm using the word Ishvara, there actually in the Upanishads it is Brahman. But for our convenience, most of us may not be very comfortable with this term Brahman. Let me use the term Ishvara, doesn't matter, just for our convenience sake. So there Ishvara, who is that great cause, beyond and behind all the causes. Ishvara is that great cause, behind and beyond all the so-called causes which we see on the surface. So the Ishvara is seeing this mad play. Ishvara is seeing, see how the small group of people, they are celebrating their victory, not knowing that they became victorious because of me. Ishvara is thinking in that way. It is I who made them victorious, and these fools are thinking that they became victorious by their own capabilities. They didn't. It is I who defeated the demons. It is not the gods who defeated the demons. The demons were defeated by Ishvara himself. The gods were mere instruments. But not knowing this, the gods had become elated. They became presumptuous. They were gripped by a false sense of self-conceit. They became arrogant. And remember, arrogance is the beginning of the human being's downfall. Arrogance and ego and pride is the beginning of the human being's downfall. Just look into the yesterday's phenomenon. What happened in Myanmar? It can happen anywhere. It can happen anytime, anywhere. All our boasted pride about civilization, I just think, how much time does it take for everything to get pulverized, literally pulverized? These huge structures, how much time does it take to be just brought down to the ground? Just flatly few seconds. All the human arrogance about we build cities and we build bridges, we build civilizations, we build, nature destroys. Again we build, nature destroys. Actually, are we building? The question is that, who is building? Who is creating all these things? But human beings in ignorance arrogates to himself the credit of what it is doing on the surface. Actually, the human being is made to do it by a higher power. But in ignorance, when we arrogate everything to ourselves, the consequence is the beginning of self-destruction. Now, this is what was happening precisely to this team called gods, who had become elated, presumptuous, vainglorious, and Ishvara was seeing that. This is the beginning of the destruction of gods, and he didn't want it. So Ishvara decided, let me teach them a lesson of humility. We have to remember one thing. Humility is the cornerstone of spiritual life. Spiritual life doesn't even take off unless we learn to surrender our arrogant attitude, unless we learn to be humble, unless we learn to surrender our ego at the feet of that great cause called Ishvara, our spiritual life doesn't even start. To teach this lesson, Ishvara does one thing. So the story goes that this Ishvara, when the gods were celebrating, when they were having, when they were partying, at that time, at the place where they were partying and celebrating, the Ishvara suddenly appears there in a very attractive form. And that form, in the form of a Yaksha, you know the term Yaksha? Let us not be worried about that. Yaksha is a demigod. So this Ishvara appears before the gods in the form of a Yaksha, in the form of a demigod. A demigod who is so attractive, so brilliant, and seeing suddenly this entity appearing before the gods who were busy celebrating, totally forgetful of the reality that they became victorious owing to the presence of something else. They were totally oblivious of the existence of a higher reality, and they were arrogating to themselves the credit of having defeated the demons. To correct this great mistake, Ishvara appears before them in the form of a Yaksha, a demigod. And the moment the gods see this demigod, they are totally taken aback, because they had not seen something so beautiful and so attractive, so overpowering. And when they saw this demigod, they started to talk within themselves as to who is this person who has appeared suddenly before us. So in the story, gods, Agni Devata, Vayu Devata, and Indra Devata. There were many other gods, but here specifically the three gods are mentioned in the Upanishad: Agni, Vayu, and Indra. So these gods, they started discussing among themselves, so who is this entity which has suddenly appeared before them? They didn't have any clue as to what is going to happen. So they were very curious to know who this entity is. And they started discussing among themselves, we have to find out who this entity is. So the gods, they asked Agni first. Agni is fire. They asked fire first, "Oh fire, you are so powerful. You go. You go and find out who is this entity. Go and ask that person." Now see, all these gods were puffed up with pride. That is the problem. The moment we get puffed up with pride, we are already in deep trouble. The main cause of all the sufferings in human life is this puffed up attitude. When we are proud, when we are arrogant, the downfall and destruction has already started. So these gods who were very proud about their capabilities, the story is so symbolical and so beautiful. Agni, we know the power of Agni, fire. So fire is so powerful. So the gods first request Agni Devata, the fire god, you go and find out who this Yaksha is. So Agni says, yes, I'll do it. He was so confident. In fact, he was overconfident. And in his overconfidence, he rushes towards that Yaksha. But as soon as he comes close to the Yaksha, he becomes humbled. Why humbled? See, even the proudest person, if that person comes and stands in front of somebody who is super great, that person will become humble. Is it not? As long as we don't meet a more powerful person than our own self, we always remain very arrogant in life. But when you are face to face with somebody who is super powerful than yourself, automatically our heads bow down. This is the very rule of the so-called the world. As long as I don't come across somebody who is more powerful than me, I think I am everything. The egoistic attitude, the arrogance. So this Agni, who was thinking too much about himself, when it comes close to this Yaksha, it becomes humbled, seeing the glory of this creature. Who is this creature? So magnanimous. Agni was seeing his own deficiency or his own smallness in front of that entity. And he forgot. He forgot the very purpose for which he had come close to Yaksha. He had come to the Yaksha with the intention of asking the Yaksha, who are you? Now he has totally forgotten that, and he is totally silent. He is dumbfounded. Not a single word comes out of his mouth. He simply is looking at this Yaksha. He doesn't ask anything. Now this Yaksha is nothing but Ishvara in a certain form. It is the Ishvara's play which is going on. Now Yaksha is asking that fire, that who are you? Now see, the moment Yaksha asks this question to fire, that who are you, that is actually a bit humiliating. Humiliating why? The fire is thinking that, see, I am fire. So the fire says, when the Yaksha asks this question to the fire, who are you? The fire says, I am Agni, I am fire, and I am known in the world as Jata Veda. A term, I'm just using a term which is there in the Upanishad. Jata Veda means one who is omniscient, one who knows everything. So usually, it's just like, presenting ourselves. Don't you know who I am? I am so and so, and I am known in the world as so and so. See, I am that singer. My name, I am that singer. I am known to the world as the superstar of the so-called the silver screen. To ask a famous person, who are you, it is so humiliating, is it not? If a person who is very famous, and if somebody comes and asks him, who are you, it is so humiliating. This is exactly what happened there. This Yaksha is asking Agni, who is so famous, Agni is so well known in this creation. To that Agni, this entity is asking, who are you? It is actually to make that person humble. This is all lessons in humility, actually. So when Yaksha asked him, who are you? He's saying, don't you know? I am Agni, and I am known in the world as Jata Veda. Jata Veda means all-knowing. So that itself is a lesson in humility. Now see, the Yaksha has totally forgotten the purpose for which he has come. The fire, Agni, has totally forgotten the purpose for which he has come to the Yaksha. Agni had come to the Yaksha to find out who this Yaksha is, but now he's totally forgotten. Now he's just answering the questions from Yaksha. So Yaksha asked him, who are you? Agni is saying, I am Agni, and I am known in the world as Jata Veda, omniscient. Then the Yaksha asks him, okay, oh, you are Agni, okay. What is your power? Show me your power. Again, see, tell me about your capability. So Agni very proudly says, yes, my capability. I can burn everything on this earth. Anything you tell, I can burn it to ashes. That is my capability. It's true, fire is that which can burn everything to ashes. Fire has got that power. So Yaksha says, very good. And the Yaksha places one blade of grass before Agni, before this fire, one blade of grass, one straw, one piece of straw in front of this Agni, this god, and tells him, okay, Agni, show me your power. Burn this straw. Yaksha is asking Agni to burn one blade of grass. He was saying that I can burn everything on this earth. And Yaksha is telling you, just show me, you just burn this one blade of grass. So Agni thinks, what's so big deal about it? And Agni is so overconfident that he rushes and tries to burn the straw, and he utterly fails. He couldn't burn that straw. With all zest and enthusiasm, he went ahead to burn that blade of grass, but he utterly failed. And in utter shame, in silence, Agni returned back to God, to the other gods there. And the other gods asked Agni, what happened? Could you find out who this Yaksha is? He said, no, I could not understand who this Yaksha is. And now he's very humbled. Okay, this is what happens. The moment we become humble, it's a totally different attitude. Arrogance is one kind of an attitude. Humility is another kind of attitude. Now, the gods, they discuss between themselves and they say, okay, then Vayu is air. They say, Vayu, now you go and find out who this Yaksha is. Again, the Vayu is very arrogant. Vayu says, yes, I will go and find out. Don't worry. Saying this, Vayu goes and stands before the Yaksha. And the same thing happens. He also becomes humbled when it comes close to Yaksha. And he forgets to ask this question as to who this Yaksha is. And now the same thing happens. Yaksha is asking the Vayu, oh Vayu, air, who are you? Again, it's so humiliating question to ask this Vayu. Vayu says, I am Vayu, I am the air, and I am known in the world as Matarishva. Matarishva means one who freely moves in space. That is the description there. I am Vayu and I am Matarishva. So, the same thing. Psychology is that, don't you know I am so famous? I am known through two names. I am Vayu and I am Matarishva. I am famous in the world. So, okay, the Yaksha says, very fine. What is your capability? The Vayu says, I can blow away anything on the surface of this earth. That is my power. I can blow away everything. Okay, you can blow away everything. You just blow this one piece of straw, blade of grass. And he keeps that one blade of grass in front of Vayu and says, blow it up. And this Vayu, with all enthusiasm and zest, goes and pounces on that blade of grass, and he sees that he is absolutely incapable to blow that straw. He is utterly humbled, and he also comes back. Now, the last god was Indra. Now, you all must be knowing, according to the Vedic pantheon, Indra is the god of all gods. He is the lord of all gods, and he is the most arrogant person. If you are the boss is always, I should not say always, there may be some exception, but usually the bosses are like that. They think, I am the boss, I am running the company, what do you think? I am the Adhyaksha, what do you think? I am running the show. They are the most arrogant, they may be most arrogant, exceptions may be there, but that is the attitude. When you are leading a group, the tendency is to think that I am leading the group. Who am I to lead anything? That is a big question. So Indra, who is the Lord of Lord, he is the most arrogant person because of his lordliness, because of the position which he holds. Now he himself goes to find out who this Yaksha is. Now, a very interesting thing happens. In the earlier two cases, with Agni and Vayu, at least Yaksha had spoken to them. Now with Indra, what happens? When Indra comes close to Yaksha, Yaksha doesn't even pay attention to him, doesn't even give him any audience, and simply vanishes from there. It is so humiliating. Just imagine if a very famous person, if that person is going to meet someone and the other person has turned the face and just walks away, how humiliating it can be, is it not? If a very famous person is going to meet another person and the other person doesn't even pay attention to that person, how humiliating it can be. This is what happened with Indra. See, Ishvara is teaching them the lessons in humility. Do not think that what you have with you is yours. If you are having certain capabilities, it is owing to something which is not known to you. It is the knowledge of that which really matters. And in this way, what happens when Indra approaches the Yaksha simply disappears from there, vanishes, and Indra is totally humbled. And he stands there in that very place. He is standing and is thinking, who is this entity? Where has he gone? And at that very moment, but the speciality of Indra was that Indra didn't return from there. Just like Agni and Vayu, they came back, Indra didn't come back. He was determined to find out who this Yaksha is. And he stood there, and he was contemplating, he was anxiously and earnestly wanting to know who this Yaksha is. And because of his earnestness, now something wonderful happens. Now this whole drama is the drama of Ishvara. Ishvara is playing this amazing drama to teach these gods, to teach all of us the lessons in humility. And then what happens? In that very place where Yaksha was earlier standing and now he disappeared, in that very place, an extremely beautiful woman appears. Upanishad says, an extremely beautiful woman decked with golden ornaments. She is none but the Divine Mother, Uma Haimavati. Upanishad says like that. The Divine Mother appears there, and she is also Brahma Vidya. She is Vidya, she is the knowledge. She is the doorway to the knowledge of the Supreme Reality. She holds the key to the knowledge of that entity which is existing behind and beyond this phenomenon called Prakriti. This body-mind complex and this nature which we are seeing outside, there is something which is beyond and behind these things. And the knowledge of that, the key to the knowledge of that is in the hands of this Divine Mother. Now this Divine Mother is standing in front of Indra, and Divine Mother is telling Indra as to who this Yaksha was. Divine Mother makes Indra understand that Yaksha was none but Brahman or Ishvara. So the story is very symbolical in the sense that this knowledge of Ishvara comes by the grace of Divine Mother, number one. Again, I repeat, the story is extremely symbolical in the sense that Indra gained the knowledge of that supreme cause. But how did it come? It came through the grace of the Divine Mother, who holds the key to the supreme knowledge, number one. And secondly, in and through this story, what we need to learn the lesson is that behind this body-mind complex, no matter what capabilities we have, no matter what talents we have, behind everything, there is one source of all capabilities and abilities. It is from there and in the presence of which that we appear to be so talented and capable. In fact, all the capabilities belong to Ishvara and Ishvara alone. We are just mere instruments. It is through this that Ishvara is creating cities and she is destroying the cities. We think that we are making civilizations and cities and bridges and skyscrapers and machines and whatnot. You build roads, you build dams. Everything is brought down in flat 2 seconds by Mother Nature. A great power which is functioning behind what we are seeing, behind this so-called body-mind complex. So this is that wonderful story which we find in Kena Upanishad. The very Upanishad starts with the statement, what is that entity which is directing everything from behind? If we just look into this psychophysical system, this body, our hands, our limbs, our sense organs, everything is moving. Who is moving it? Can we even raise a single finger by ourselves? If I am talking, from where is this capability to talk come? It is none short of Ishvara and Ishvara alone. It is Ishvara who is making all these things happen. Now, if you are continuously aware of this in your actions, everybody should be talented. Talent is not the issue. The issue is taking credit of that talent to our own self is the problem. When we understand that whatever talents you may be having, you may be a great intellectual, you may be a great teacher, or whatever you may be. If you are good in a certain area, remember that capability, that ability, that skill which you have. Behind all that, there is a source of all capabilities and power, which is the great cause, Ishvara, without which nothing can happen. This is the great, in Bhakti Shastras, we say, without that Ishvara, not a single blade of grass moves. Is it not? The Bhakti Shastra, that's the statement. Without Ishvara, there is not a single blade, there is not a single leaf which can move in this creation. Behind everything is that great Ishvara. Now, to gain the knowledge of this great entity is the very goal of human life. That is why it's very interesting, to say that we may have the knowledge of So many physical things. As I see, always I see, there will always be a question unanswered. There is always one question which will remain unanswered unless we seek it. If we just look into the human journey, we are continuously seeking knowledge. Not only seeking knowledge, we are attaining one thing after the other. And every time when we attain something, the question will be, what next? What next? What next? Let us start our journey from our childhood days. We went to the school, kindergarten. Kindergarten, what next? Grade 1. What next? Grade 2. Grade 3, grade 4, grade 10, matriculation. What next? Undergraduate courses. Yes, you became graduate. What next? You go for higher studies, PhD. What next? Masters, PhD, and what not. You can have masters in a range of different subjects. What next? You settle down in life with family and children. What next? You have attained position, you have attained wealth, you have attained everything. What next? This one question will always trouble the human soul. What next? You cannot be satisfied with whatever you have in this life unless you come to this great cause of all causes. What next is a question which will always trouble the human soul. That is what the great Shankaracharya in his masterpiece, he says, Tatakim, 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 Tatakim. You know that? Guru Rashtakam. You have wealth, you are young, you are beautiful, you have all the pleasures, you are famous in this world, the whole world is at your feet. What next? What next? What next? Unless you come to this great reality, which is the cause of all causes, and which is residing in our own hearts, this question of what next will keep on pinching the human soul. And as long as we don't come to that point, no one can sit quiet. That is why everybody is restless here. You look into this creation, every creature is restless. Can we sit quiet even for 5 minutes? Even if you don't have any work, you will create some work and you will be engaged. Is it not? In your houses, if you just see, actually speaking, there is nothing more to do, and yet we create something and you will be engaging yourself. It is all coming out of a sense of dissatisfaction. And we are bound to remain dissatisfied as long as we don't understand or we don't experience this great reality which is in our hearts. No creature can be satisfied as long as we don't come to this great experience. That is why the ultimate, you see, as I said, human beings, they are all knowledge seekers. And we are continuously seeking small bits of knowledge. Physics is a small bit of knowledge. Chemistry is another small bit of knowledge. Mathematics, another small bits of knowledge. The small bits and bits and bits of knowledge is not going to satisfy us unless we have the knowledge of the infinite. It is a journey from seeking small bits of knowledge to the knowledge of the infinite. That's why in spite of knowing everything in this realm, we are still groping in darkness. You may be having small bits of information and knowledge about the physical realm, different branches of knowledge. What is coming to my mind is another beautiful incident in Upanishads. I think I can take another 5 to 7 minutes. There is another Upanishad which talks about this. Beautiful. A beautiful depiction of this phenomenon, that you cannot be satisfied with the small bits and bits and bits of knowledge. And that is the Upanishad, this Chandogya Upanishad, where we have a beautiful conversation between Narada and Sanat Kumar. Now this Narada is a super talented person. Just like in present day, somebody who is so qualified. There is hardly any branch of knowledge about which he has not gained mastery. He is the master of almost all the branches of knowledge of his time. Present day academicians and so-called intellectuals, you have the knowledge of this and that. He knows so many bits and bits and bits of areas. And yet he is dissatisfied. the satisfaction is not coming to his soul. And he is acutely aware of the fact that the more he gains the knowledge, more he understands that beyond what he has gained, there is an infinite realm about which he doesn't know anything. Again, I repeat, every bit of knowledge and information which we gain makes, if we are thoughtful, you will see that it will make us feel the acute pain of the fact that beyond the so-called one bit of knowledge, there is a vast realm about which we know nothing. This bits of knowledge is not going to satisfy the human soul unless we come to the knowledge of the infinite. I want the infinite. That is the search here. See, we are talking about the lessons from the Upanishads. No bits of knowledge, bits of information is not going to satisfy the human soul. We cannot rest till we come to the infinite, the knowledge of the infinite. And the knowledge of the infinite means experience of the infinite. Please note it down. The knowledge of the infinite is not going to be bookish knowledge. Physics is going to be a bookish knowledge. Mathematics can be a bookish knowledge. But when we talk about the knowledge of the infinite, it cannot remain bookish. It has to be experiential. And the knowledge of the infinite is the experience of the infinite. And when you experience the infinite, you will realize you are experiencing your own self. Again, I repeat. Knowledge of the infinite means the experience of the infinite, and the experience of the infinite means the experience of your own true self. You are that. This is the great lesson of the Upanishads. So there you will find Narada coming to Sanat Kumar with this very issue. He was a man with so many feathers on his cap, a person who had mastered so many streams of knowledge, and yet he was suffering from this pain of dissatisfaction. And he was asking this question to Sanat Kumar, the Guru, saying that, I am dissatisfied. Sanat Kumar asks him, hey Narad, first tell me what you know. The question is, tell me what you know. And it is so interesting there, so fascinating. You can see the, what should I say, the most modernity of Upanishads. Upanishads are the most modern literature. It never becomes old. Because Upanishad speaks about the eternal truth. You can see how modern Upanishad is. It is the most modern, it will always remain modern. So Narad, what does Narad say? Sanat Kumar had asked him the question, tell me what do you know? The question is, what do you know? Tumi ki jano? And Narad gives an exhaustive list of different branches of knowledge which he had mastered, almost all the branches of knowledge of his time. He is a super master of all the areas. Small bits of knowledge of different streams, and yet groping in darkness. This is precisely the predicament or the irony of the modern civilization. You may have the knowledge of the space science, and yet it is just one bit of information, one bit of knowledge. Unless the human being gains the knowledge of the infinite, that person cannot keep quiet. So Narada then presents to Sanat Kumar a list, an exhaustive list of different branches of knowledge which he had. And what was the answer of Sanat Kumar? Sanat Kumar was very silently and patiently listening to Narad. Narad was saying, I know this, I know that, I know mathematics, I know astrophysics, I know astronomy, I know medicine, I know ethics, I know logic, I know history, I know philosophy, I know psychology. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. It's a huge, long list of the different, and he has masters in all the areas. Today, even if you have masters in 2 areas, it is considered to be a big thing. Your Narad is such a modern academician who has masters in almost 24 different branches of knowledge. Today, had he existed today, he would have won a Nobel Prize for God knows for what. But yet, what Nobel Prize? It's all darkness, with all due respect to everybody. So, after giving this exhaustive list of different branches of knowledge which Narad had gained, Sanat Kumar was listening to quietly. And then what was the answer? Sanat Kumar said, my dear Narad, You know, whatever knowledge you have gained, these are all merely words and words and words and words. Shabda matram. Where is the reality in it? So beautiful. What are we learning here? It's all just words and words and words and words. Human soul cannot be satisfied by words. There is something beyond the words, the real infinite, which we are in search of. It's beyond the words. And we are all just trapped in the realm, in the network of what words can tell us. Reality is beyond the words. So Sanat Kumar tells Narad, my dear Narad, what you have learned is only words and words and words. Come, I will show you how to gain the knowledge of that infinite which will make you fulfilled forever. And then that Upanishad goes. So as I said, this quest for knowledge is what actually defines the human beings. And this human being cannot rest unless it has the knowledge of the infinite. And the knowledge of the infinite means the experience of the infinite. And when you experience the infinite, you will see that it is experience of your own self. That is a great discovery waiting to happen. Look into Sri Ramakrishna's life. When Sri Ramakrishna was asked to go to the school, what did he say? I don't want these words and words and words and words. I don't want this bread-winning education. What is this bread-winning education going to give to me? Exactly. See, that's why I always say Sri Ramakrishna is a demonstration of the Upanishads. His whole life is a demonstration. Every incident you can relate it with the principles of the Upanishads. Sri Ramakrishna totally rejects the so-called this kind of an education which is all giving us small bits of information, bits of knowledge, bits of knowledge, bits of knowledge. Human being cannot be satisfied with bits of knowledge. We cannot rest till we come to the infinite. That is the search of the soul. And when we come to the infinite, we will be discovering our own true self. So let's stop here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.